There was a question right behind you.
It was kind of answered, but being like a Hispanic woman, like in your book, your name was Alicia, and then you changed to Alice. Like, do you think that played a big part in your music, like being a Hispanic woman, and even in feminism? It's like it's usually a lot of American women, a lot of white women for a certain term, and not a lot of women of color. Do you think that played a part in like you being called Alice back instead of Alicia?
Well, I think that in the early punk scene, a lot of people took the names of their bands, so it kind of made you unaware of people's ethnicities, because you might be, you might have an ethnic sounding name, but people would just know you by the name of your band, which is, it was liberating because people were judging you by your creative expression instead of whatever stereotypes they might have about you. But in the end, I really wanted to be able to, I want to be able to bring that back in. And I didn't at the time, I didn't think it was important. I thought all I have to offer is like my songs and my energy and my, but now I see that that to really have a stronger voice, you need to bring your background into it. You need to bring everything that shapes you. In my book, somebody actually wrote a review where they said, I don't know why she has to, she writes a lot about her family life and growing up in East LA instead of about punk, right? I thought, well, you have to. Punk, it didn't happen in isolation. There were influences on each one of us, and if you just think it's like people like that wear leather jackets that were born on Punk Planet, your view is going to be very shallow. I don't know if I answered your question. I hope I did.
Yeah, you did.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, my sister was in the punk scene, and so I was talking to someone at the Zine Fest about where the kids in the punk scene in LA came from. And I know for my sister there were rich kids, there were poor kids, there were like homeless. Who were the kids that, especially the women and the girls that got into the scene?
We really did, I feel, and I'm really proud to say this because I think people came from all over the place to be part of the Hollywood scene. I think, I remember meeting some people in Palos Verdes, which is a really nice area, who came and then like they were like, you couldn't tell because they were wearing ripped clothes and and my guitarist, his mother has a house in Brentwood. She was a movie producer and he used to write for television. And then here he is in a band with me who like grew up in a roach-infested little hovel in East LA. And all we had, and what we had in common was like made us so close that I feel like he was my brother, So I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah, people came from all over the place because the urge to create and to create a community was so strong that it was about the music, the scene, and we didn't create divisions.
Wasn't a lot of it about what it wasn't? That is to say, it wasn't Led Zeppelin, it wasn't Deep Purple, it wasn't America. It was, I hate my parents more than they hate me.
Yeah, part of it was about what, I think everybody, different people, different bands had a different approach, but yes, a lot of it was a reaction to like, the heavy, even though I personally am a Queen fan, and several punks were, like,
But at the time, we would have never confessed it.
No, I did confess it, absolutely. Well, I write about it in the book too, but Darby was a Queen fan, Pat Smear, I was a Queen fan, my bassist was, anyway. But the reaction to it as far as like, who had access to play, you can idolize those people and never be able to have your own voice. So punk was what allowed us to, yes, to not be that, but be just as good as that, Or at least that's how I know.
I have a question. It's pretty much for like all three, but I was wondering like how important it was for you guys to be breaking rules with what you were doing. Like, it seems like being unconventional or something. if it was important or if it was just kind of like there was something you wanted to do and haven't worked out that way.
I mean, that's a good question, because as I get older, I'm like, am I just like still acting out, or like, is there a reason for this? And I think that just from my position, everything that I wanted to do was wrong, you know. So like, I never had a experience where I expressed myself, you know, in that first, like in your first innocent ways of trying to express yourself and become who you are. Like the first way that happened for me was breaking every rule. That just happened naturally because I happened to be in like an evangelical West Texas hellhole. And so like that became a process that I was very comfortable with, like being like, what are the rules? Okay, fuck that. And what are the rules here? No. And there's, you know, if you come to a space where there are no rules or where everybody agrees with you, and then it's kind of a funny moment of maturation where you're like, wait a minute, I don't have to fight against these people. Okay, now where can the conversation go? This is great. Oh, we all believe, we have a similar belief system. We all, you know, that's really exciting. And then you can, you know, get more sophisticated with your language and your expression. But I think maybe because of that primary experience, or who knows why, I still find myself, whenever confronted with an opportunity to create something, questioning what the rules are that I'm going to encounter in the process of making something or in the process of exhibiting it, wherever that might be, and then asking myself if I think they make sense, and if they don't, then breaking it.
You guys want to talk, or do you want to go to a question?
I don't know. I mean, I think my goal with performing, I just like to perform, but I like to kind of break down the barriers between performance and, or the performer and the audience, and to kind of show, like, kind of all the flaws and the whole, I don't know. I think that's, so it's more about maybe breaking rules structurally or something. But I don't know, I was kind of a goody goody growing up. So I'm uncomfortable with too much rule.
You did it, right?
Yeah, I get uncomfortable breaking rules too, but I sometimes force myself to do it because I feel like it has to be done, and it makes me a stronger person to push myself.
Yeah.
Oh, never mind. Go ahead.
I know you've had your hand up.
I wanted to ask a question sort of about zines, and also just in general, sort of the way that people communicated in print back in the day. It seems like in the early 90s and before, it was so crucial, like, you know, in your town, especially if you're at a small town, you might have one radio station that played music. You might be able to watch even 20 minutes, but you had like multiple voices from all these zines and magazines. I read something recently where some people were saying that that's anachronistic, and that actually, especially in the political realm, it's so much easier to get the word out now with blogging and with the internet. I guess my question is sort of what unique value do zines and all the things we saw today still have? What do they do that we can't get from the
Well, I kind of talked about it earlier, but I don't know. I mean, because sometimes I feel bad over just chopping down a bunch of trees. Like, that's what I used to call zines tree choppers. Because I was, in a way, sometimes it's just like, why is this so important that we have to chop a tree down? I don't know. But at the same time, I don't know, you can take your time with it. You can read it on the subway. You can, whatever.
You don't have to be connected all the time, right?
Well, it hurts my eyes. I can't, I mean, the computer, I can't stare at the computer very long. It really hurts my eyes. They're so fun to hold.
Yeah.
I still get that warm, fuzzy feeling too when you're like, somebody touched this. Like somebody sat on their floor and like cut things up and wrote things down and thought about it and looked at it and then was like, it's done. And, you know, and then like, and now I'm holding it. I mean, you can totally get that, a similar experience of reading something really confessional or beautiful or well thought out online also, and you know, in the text. But there's, of course, there's like that really lovely feeling of actually getting to like hold someone's thought in your hand.
Yeah, it's like, I think never, I don't know how to say it, I won't say never because that's like a curse. But I can't read a book on a Nook, you know, I want a book, or I want a zine. It's, you know, you can go to someone's blog, but there's also a different, I think it's a different experience. Like you said, it's, for me it's emotional. I wanna hold it, I wanna take it wherever I feel like, and not worry about like, do I have Wi-Fi?
Yeah. Or what other million things are trying to get my attention right now?
Yes. Or pop-ups, you know. No pop-ups.
Well, on that pro-zine note, do we have a, give it down.
Unless you want to continue, because it's a little off zine and more back in the punk scene.
Go for it.
It might be like an overwhelmingly like general question, but or open-ended question, but curious to hear your thoughts on just like your views and like the future of punk, because it's kind of like it's still around, and some people feel like it's sort of like expired. Some people still like kind of relive it in this sort of like nostalgic way. What are your ideas and thoughts of like the recreation of the punk scene? Like, where is it going?
I have really strong ideas about this, so I'm going to just bust in. Like the whole reason that we came out wearing the Pussy Riot balaclavas is because I'm so inspired by them. They're, you know, they were inspired by you guys more than like by punk, but I think they were inspired by Riot Girl. And, but I see them as more punk than like, you know, 90% of what I see on stage half the time. You know, it's like 9%. No, but they are political, they're feminists, they're challenging you with the way they look, with their ideas, with the places they choose to do it. They make it accessible to everyone, and I just want everybody to support them, and I'm very optimistic that if that kind of punk spreads, that it's limitless and very empowering, and much more than a musical movement. It is really, you know, it can really change society and the way we see each other.
Happening too, like I feel like people who will never play music can be punk in the way that they live their lives, and like the way that they, I mean, there's another group of activists called Femin who are active in the Ukraine. I don't know if y'all don't know them, you should look them up. They're fucking badass babes. And they're, you know, people who are like going out with that notion of changing, speaking truth to power, and through whatever means they have. And those girls I pick as a good example because they just use their bodies. They go, the Pope is giving a talk, they go and take their tops off. Because they know that's going to draw some attention, so they say, shut up, homophobe. You know, and they, you know, get arrested. And it's a big spectacle, but that using literally their own flesh in order to make a point in public. And I think that's like a good example of that ideology. And it's happening all the time. Like, there was a hearing against the NDAA last week in New York City that I went to, and you know, people were out on the street in like freezing cold, snowing, and people were protesting, and some people have gotten together and are suing the government because they don't think it's constitutional for it to be allowed for a citizen to be detained indefinitely by the military, which I think we would probably all agree is not really cool with us. So like this ideology is being enacted in all forms, you know, outside of the sphere of the music. So that's really cool that people listen to your music and then go to court.
This one.